we'll soon see what they decide to do after that. Because if it were me, I would most likely retreat at this point. As you could see from Cherise, that was a rather bad decision on my part, I believe, to actually try that, but I believed I had a really good shot at taking them down, but it seems as though, because they had so many archers at the bottom in the courtyard there, they were just too much for our units to be able to handle. So maybe, with my renewed force that I gathered from Uxkhal, and of course all of the units that were knocked unconscious in that particular siege, we may be able to head back to Cherise if we are successful in defending Valuka, which at the moment actually seems very likely, and I am very surprised by that, of course. As you can see there, they are currently now sending in only level 1 infantry units, so it seems as though we are going to pull this off, which is absolutely amazing. I had no idea that that was going to happen. Of course, that's the magic nature of Mount and Blade. Usually you do not know what is going to happen. That is precisely why it is an amazing experience. Because you never know. You could lose, you could win. Because as I thought, at Cherise, I thought we were going to win, no doubt whatsoever in my mind. But they showed us, and that just shows. You can never be too confident, because once you do, you start making judgment mistakes, and yes, as you've seen time and time again in my series, I always gain too much confidence in my forces, and then I think I can take on anything, and that is usually my downfall. As is the way it happened at Cherise. It speaks for itself. I can just hope that maybe in Mount and Blade 2 they make everything a little bit more dynamic, because that's the one thing I haven't really talked about when I refer to Mount and Blade 2. Because whenever I refer to Mount and Blade 2, I always say, oh, I could do with destructible environments, I could do with new siege equipment, different ways of actually accomplishing sieges and so forth. And that is all very well and good, but if you add a dynamic element into that, then you can become the best game of the year. No problem at all. I mean, I know everyone that is probably watching this series enjoys Mount and Blade thoroughly, and I can only assume that adding a dynamic element that would change the flow of play every single time you load it up, that would be really, really cool, I have to say. Of course, those of you that do appreciate a rather static experience, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that, you know, things happening the same every time, like stats maybe, and what units you were able to actually recruit at that point, and so on and so forth, that kind of thing, that is a rather nice staple to have in a game such as this. But I'm talking about the random elements, such as some huge army coming out of nowhere, maybe the amounts of units you're able to recruit. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have the greatest game design mind, as it were, so yes, I'm sure they'll come up with something amazing, but I'm just throwing that in there to have some dynamic gameplay. I think that might actually be a very good idea indeed. As you can see, we did actually kill 137 units, and we took out 808 of the enemy. Now that is a slaughter. If you thought Cherise was bad, then just look at this. Oh yes. Okay. Wow. The enemy have been forced to retreat. The assault is over, but the siege continues. And that is music to my ears. Very nice indeed. So, we are going to leave for just a second, and now we will be leveling up a few of our units. As you can see, we have quite a few going on here, leveling up and so forth. We'll get a few more cavalry, because I believe having a majority archer force is probably not the greatest idea for sieges. So, as you can see, we have quite a bit more infantry under our command, and that should help us out. So now, let's actually see what's going on here. I don't think they're going to... Okay, they actually did. They decided to enter once again. That is probably a mistake on their part, because I believe we should be able to hold out for another 316, no problem at all. As you can see, it is now daytime. And if I could actually hit someone with my crossbow, that might actually be a great idea. Oh my goodness, we actually have level 6 Swadian Yeoman Archers. Oh my, well, they have entered the hornet's nest, as it were. They will be facing the wrath of Byron Bertild, son of King Barney. And I think they already know they have stepped into a rather severe mistake, but it seems as though they are not willing to admit that. They are very stubborn, so it seems as though we will have to make them pay for their mistakes, as is the way of things in the world of Mount and Blade. And that is the next thing that will come out. A massive multiplayer online game to do with Mount and Blade. World of Mount and Blade. That seems to be a rather bad idea, I would say. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I just don't know how a persistent world would really work. Of course it might, because you could be a soldier in an army, and you would be able to siege various targets, and it would be just a huge persistent world. I would suggest perhaps like PlanetSide 2. Now, I don't know how many of you know about PlanetSide 2, but it is a similar concept that I am currently talking about for Mount and Blade, of course, but really, Mount and Blade for me is one of the best single-player experiences I've probably played in quite some time, and due to, of course, the modding community alone makes it worth a purchase. And that's pretty much all I can say. I mean, the community behind this game is one of the main reasons why it's such an amazing experience, because you just have so many options. If you don't like the native gameplay, change it out. Change it to anything you like. You can change it to Prophecy of Pendor. You can change it to Britain Order. You can even install the Floris mod, just like I have. And there is a link in the description if you would want to, of course, be able to download that. And that is, of course, if you enjoy the Calradia map. And I actually like the Calradia map. I think it's quite nice. And if you don't, then, of course, there are so many options out there. And even now, I believe it's probably been about 3 years since Mount and Blade Warband came out, if it came out in 2010. I don't actually know the details on that. Maybe it came out in 2011? Not entirely sure on that. But it just shows how a community can drive a game forward and give it the much needed extra content that the developers may not have the resources or the time to actually do. And that is exactly why we must provide them with the most support we can when Mount and Blade 2 comes out, so they know that we are absolutely enthralled by their creation. And we will soon be playing the hell out of it, yeah. Well, at least maybe nearer to October anyway, because I believe that's when they are aiming for a release. I could be mistaken about that, but it's just something I heard. So yes, there we are. We were able to beat back the amazing force that is the Nords and their king. So there we are. Now we should be able to take a few of them prisoner. Now the only unfortunate thing is, I would really like to let them go, but as the Nords are currently rather strong, I might want to keep them prisoner for now and then maybe let them go at a later time, but of course then their relation won't really increase, I don't believe. We may want to take them prisoner, and I will be doing so, just as I say that, and then everyone else escapes. Well, I suppose it might be good to actually do that anyway. So, let's take as many prisoners as we can, and then we'll take some Taiga bandits. Perform the upgrading. It seems only Artie Mena is now upgrading his gear, so it seems as though we're rather lucky in the way that all of our other companions have good gear as it is. So yes, there we are. We have saved Valuka from the Nord Scourge. As you can see, the Nords have a rather large piece of territory, and I would not like to lose yet another stronghold to them. So, on that note, I will be ending this session off here. I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.